Hey guys, Dr. Prometheus here, back with another video for you guys. This one is the Madden 23 franchise deep dive. I saw a little bit with this, so this isn't like a blind deep dive or anything like that. I have seen other ones. I have seen the full video of this. I want to give you guys my thoughts on what we're going to be doing in franchise when it comes live in probably a couple months, because it is like late July. So at this point, probably in about a month it should come up, because the first week of the season is like early September. So Madden's not too far from this. So I want to give you guys my thoughts on it. So let's pop into this deep dive.
New features are coming to franchise this year. Today we're excited to share the details about free agency, motivations, tags, contracts, scouting, and some of the things we're doing to provide deeper immersion. We focused on these areas specifically to respond to player feedback, with the goal of enhancing the realism, authenticity, and fun within the mode.
Okay.
The same level of drama and fun that fans experience during the free agency.
Allen Robinson, we're gonna miss him in Chicago.
Free agency in Madden 23 is a more competitive and rewarding experience for our players.
And that was immediately what I've wanted in franchise. A more realistic experience, but also a lot of more realistic factors. So I felt that there was no real risk in free agency. And I'll give you my thoughts on what I think the dynamic change is, at least for me as a franchise player.
In Madden 22, free agency signings were based on which team offered the most money to a player. In Madden 23, money remains a factor, but that's not.
Now this is big. I like the motivations. That's going to be great for playing the dynamic between two teams. So say if you're playing like historic championships, a team like the Bears, who has a lot of championships, or the Patriots, or things like that, that is going to be massive in team building. And it's going to help you have a team that is more attractive to veterans. On the flip side, it's going to be very, very intriguing to take over a team that's never won a Super Bowl, and seeing that they've never had any historic championships. You're going to have a lot of young players come in, and you're not going to have any longtime vets that are chasing championships for you. I also wonder what the historic championship threshold is. Like, if you win the Super Bowl the previous year, you might have like a motivation that's fulfilled, but you don't have a historic championship line. I mean, you've only won one. So I wonder what the threshold is in there for historic championships. Is it 5 for the franchise history? Is it 10? Like, I wonder what that is that makes you a historic championship. Or maybe it's on a scale. Like, say the team with the most is 21. So really it goes from 21 to 0. And so maybe it's scaled as that, which I think would be a bigger thing and probably better in the long run, because it could actually stretch out those teams in the middle, and the historic championship motivation would be there. The playoff chase, the same thing, or the Super Bowl chase with that one as well. Probably more so on the number of times you probably compete, things like that. It'd be pretty cool. Warm weather state, home state. I'm going to love this. Income tax. It's going to be fun.
Not the only factor. All new player motivations and tags add competition and skill to the process. They also drive decision making beyond just the money.
Also, another thing with the like mentor tags and things like that, that really gives an added bonus for the veteran status of players. So I know we had like in the scenario engine, the mentor portion, but at times it wasn't always there. Like, it didn't always fire or trigger. This time it's there the entire time, and I like that. So, and it only goes for players at their position, which makes me, I wonder what it is. Say if you have a right guard if that goes for the position group or maybe a wider position group like guards, or is it just for that right guard or left guard? So I do wonder how that's implemented. I think it'd be better to have it through the entire O-line or through the position group on both sides. So we'll have to see how that's set up.
Offered when negotiating free agent contracts. Motivations help determine why a player chooses to sign with a particular team. Let's go deeper here with some real-world examples. Jarvis Landry just took an offer with the New Orleans Saints, and one of his motivations to sign there was going back home to Louisiana, where he
amazing
played college ball.
That's going to be great.
Motivation in Madden 23 called close to home. If a player has this...
Also, I want to say with this is this gives you depth from real life players, and it might be hilarious in some of the things because some players may not want any of these motivations. But the biggest thing is this is going to create depth for those player like generated ones, the game generation players. So the players that when you get into year 4 and 5, those players that have been in draft classes, this is going to be where it really shows and shines and mixes things up, because those are going to be completely random things that you don't have any real world comparison to. Obviously, it's going to be hilarious if Jarvis Landry doesn't want to play for a playoff contender when he's a longtime vet, has never actually won a Super Bowl or anything like that, and he wants to go to a random team that is just silly. We're going to laugh at those, but it really brings depth to those other players that are in the draft class.
Motivation and you can satisfy it, it's going to give you a leg up in negotiations. Another example, wide receiver Russell Gage signed with Tampa Bay. He actually got a recruiting call from Tom Brady a few days before he signed with the Bucs. This is another new motivation in Madden 23 where players want to play with franchise quarterbacks. Previously, players like Leonard Fournette, Antonio Brown, and Rob Gronkowski all signed with the Bucs to play alongside Brady, a legendary franchise quarterback. Our last example,
I think that's going to be absolutely massive. So obviously Tom Brady, that's going to be there. There's going to be some draft class fixes, so players aren't drafting multiple franchise quarterbacks or anything like that, which will help. But the fact that that's in there, that's going to be amazing. So probably that threshold is a couple Super Bowls, that sort of thing, and also the franchise tag quarterback. The franchise quarterback tag is going to be big as well for a lot of these teams. I really think this is going to add not just an AI, it like stops AI confusion, but also could help the player in kind of seeing exactly what the AI wants to do, what they're doing, and what they're building for a team, which is particularly important when they're trying to figure out if AI logic is broken or not. So you need these types of things to measure and scale, and I think that's going to be a good thing. As well as I think it's also going to help the guys with draft classes. I would imagine when you're a custom draft class, you could probably make certain players have certain tag traits, I would imagine. For example, what team doesn't have a franchise quarterback? See, Baker went to Carolina. So let's say the Colts, for example. The Colts don't have anyone there that's big. I don't even know who their quarterback after Carson Wentz went over to Washington. So that could be another one too. You don't really have a franchise quarterback there, and I wonder if in a custom draft class you would be able to edit and have a future draft class, say next year's college draft class, that you could go in and actually tag some of those players or not. That's going to be intriguing to see how the tag system goes with custom draft classes, or if it's going to be more bound towards the in-game generated classes. But I really like this idea how you have those tags that affect other position groups. And with a team like, to the Bears or the Chargers, for example. The Chargers would be great with Justin Herbert. He's a franchise quarterback, hasn't proven himself, but it's really a big thing there, as well as some of the veteran teams as well. So I wonder what that threshold is also with those quarterbacks like that. Is Stafford going to be one of them? I mean, that was one of the things that brought in Allen Robinson into LA, and that was the fact that Matthew Stafford, he probably wanted to more so play with Stafford than anyone else. So I mean, that's a big thing.
Is linebacker Von Miller. He's a veteran who wants to win a Super Bowl first and foremost. That's Madden 23's Super Bowl contender motivation. Player motivations are going to better define where players go in free agency. So the decision is about much more than money. Does a player want to be in a big market? Does he need to be at the top of the depth chart in order to sign? Does he fit the offensive or defensive scheme? We even have a no-state income tax motivation for teams in Texas.
This is going to be so good.
For example.
This literally makes me, like, I had an idea what I was going to play as the franchise team. Now I have no idea because of these tags. Like, what could be interesting at this point? I mean, Detroit doesn't have a franchise QB really. So do I go, would it be cool to rebuild one from Detroit and work from the bottom where you have a lot of disadvantages? Or what about another team that hasn't won a Super Bowl? What is it? Carolina? Or Carolina's won one, I think. Denver has. So do you pick like maybe the Texans or some of the other teams? Like, this is going to make franchise so much more confusing and picking exactly what I want. I'd have to look through team history. I need to look at who the players are, that sort of thing. I was leaning towards doing a franchise with the Chargers. I'm not sure if I'm going to end up doing that because, well, I had ideas on doing other franchises as well. Maybe Carolina. I mean, there's so much that has to go in this, and it's gonna have to, I'll have to have the game in my hand to really figure out what I'm possibly gonna do. But this gives me kind of psyched for a new Madden franchise, and one that's much more organized than what we've been doing over the past couple of years. So it'll be back like the editing commentary type deal. So let's keep going.
We're also introducing all new player tags that directly impact free agent logic, trade logic, draft logic, and player progression. Let's walk through a few examples of player tags. When Aaron Rodgers wins the MVP award in Madden 23, he'll get the award winner tag. This will drive free agency AI and increase the interest of other teams to sign him.
So here's one thing I also have in here where it says franchise QBs will not be replaced by the team until later in their career. I wonder what that idea is with the tag later in their career. So what we see in Madden 22 a lot is you'll see Tom Brady within year 2 will be in free agency. It's still like in mid 80s to high 80s overall. And he will be replaced not by Kyle Trask, who they've kind of groomed, but it'll be from another quarterback they end up getting from free agency. And so you see some weird things where Tom Brady is still in the high 80s, should start for just about any team at that point. But he's given up for another player that's about the high 80s that's young. And while that does make sense in some aspect, I mean, it's Tom Brady at that point. So it's kind of weird.
Drive up his market value. Another player tag is called Day One Starter.
This is amazing. So one thing that the AI that I've had to go in and do between seasons was literally go through, mix the depth chart up, make sure like guards at certain positions were the same. There was players that were rookies that were starting over, so sometimes you had to dial back the overall ratings in some players, or the drafted players, you'd have to dial up their ratings a little bit more to be that day one starter. And so this is going to be big. The player tags for day one starters. I wonder how they're going to implement this for the custom draft classes or the generated draft classes, but I think this is a good start to kind of put forward those round 1 and those round 2 starters. And that's going to be big, especially for a team, say like the Bears, who have Brisker, who they just drafted, that's going to be probably starting 9 times out of 10. But the fact that he might have another corner, another safety that's in there that may play, or their corners. I forgot the corner they went ahead and drafted, but in that case, he should be a day 1 starter, according to at least Madden with that depth chart. But you might see something to where he's not a day 1 starter, but he's just a couple overall lower, and so he doesn't start, so it kind of drags back his development. So I really like this idea where you have player tags for day 1 starters.
Great example is wideout Jamar Chase, who became the Bengals' top target on day 1. With this, CPU teams will now utilize pro-ready prospects, moving them above similarly rated players on the depth chart to get them more reps
Love this.
and progress them faster. Player progression logic is improved as a result. One more tag example is veteran linebacker Bobby Wagner, who has the mentor tag. This tag gives an XP bonus to all players at the same position during weekly training. You're incentivized to sign veteran players because they can help develop your younger guys. The new free agency
This is gonna be so good.
Place offers, compete with other teams, manage free agent signings, view player motivations and tags, and more. You'll see each player's motivations in the upper.
So this is big as well. And there's probably some things I would like to see on this, like you have your interest in my team and you have his motivations. I wish there was a clearer way to know what teams are going after him. Like, there's nothing here that tells me what teams are going after him. I think they'll probably still have like the 3 teams, but there's sometimes you'll see in like the fine print Madden 22 where it'll have like the top 3 teams. And then when you're looking, I think there's a line, it'll tell you like, oh, 20 teams or 19 teams are actually into them, like actually negotiating. I would like to see how many teams and who they are, maybe their contracts, that sort of thing. Not to really fight and have the idea where I have to get over one of the top 3 teams and overpay wise, but I want to be able to see how my contract fits in with the other teams. Because I mean, I think at this point with this year, you're going to have a bit of a stretch when it comes to the financials on things. And I would really like to see how that's kind of broken down.
Middle portion of the screen, as well as this overall interest level in your team. Player motivations are displayed in order of importance and can be.
Like, for example, this just has that Madden 22 line that there's 3 teams interested. Like, who are those 3 teams? I see that that he has no offers. So I guess if there was any offers, I want to see the teams that have actually offered him.
Either a positive, negative, or neutral status. Next, in the upper right-hand corner, we have the Market Watch. This shows the current number of teams that are interested in the player, as well as his offer status. The status can be no offer, in the hunt, or not in the hunt. This provides valuable information as to whether or not you want.
So yeah, having categories of not in the hunt, in the hunt, it's kind of weird. I'd rather just know exactly the teams and have some randomness in there.
Want to continue targeting a player. Below, you can also see his expected market value, which gives you a starting point on what you want to offer for his contract. Another new addition to the free agency system is the introduction of active negotiations. In order to create a sense of pressure, we've added limits to the number of offers you can have out there at any given stage. In stage 1, you have a max of 5 players you can negotiate with, so you need to be thoughtful going after those top-tier free agents. As the stages advance, you'll be able to offer more players, so in stage 2, you'll get up to 10 offers per eval period, and then after that stage, you'll have an unlimited number of negotiations.
Okay, this reminds me a lot of a merge between the unlimited system that you could with what was it? NFL head coach. Although that system had more of a time with it, certain players would allow negotiations at certain times, that sort of deal. So that had a timing factor. This kind of merges that timing factor all in once with like a Madden 14-esque idea where you can only do a limited amount of players. Like I'm liking how this is. I do like the fact that you only get 5, and I wonder if obviously the AI is confined to the same things, but we'll have to see how this actually works in the grand scheme of things. I know in this, there's probably a period as well that you don't have to wait. I mean, if you have 5 contracts, I don't think, or like 3 contracts you could put out, I don't think it's smart to go week to week. But being able to get a response during that week is going to be important, which later they do say that because I have watched it. But just the fact that you have some good things coming as the free agency kind of goes on. I do wonder if it has an issue, if you noticed, if any of you played MLB The Show. There's particularly issues with the first week or the first day with teams not actually putting forward contracts. I've noticed that a little bit in Madden 22. The top guys won't come in with contracts until week 2, which is weird sometimes. So I wonder if they fixed that, or maybe there's an extra week in there, because that would be cool like that, to have an extra week to see the players and then allow a sim week for the AI to sort out its logic when that. I'm not sure how it's going to look. We'll have to see it when the game's in hand. I didn't mess with it in the beta period, so we'll have to see when I get my hands on the game if that is the case.
We also added the Evaluate Offers button at the bottom of the screen, which allows you to place an offer without advancing the week, giving you more opportunities to go back and forth.
So that's big. The fact that it is not unlimited is big. I love that. So if I give an offer to Derwin James, and even though I have three or 5 contracts, I can't actually go back and forth with all 3 or 5 of those, or all those 5 players if it's 5. That's going to be big and create some choice in the matter.
With your free agent targets each week. Finally, at the bottom of the screen is where you can sort through the available players each week, view their player card, target your players, and make your offers. We've added 4 new contract offer presets to help streamline the negotiation process. Player-friendly, team-friendly, neutral, and very player-friendly.
So I like the fact that they have the fast way to do it, and you can do a custom. What else I see on here is I wish it gives you the position group. I do wish that over here for a position like left end, it gave you left end and it gave you right end. Things like that. That would be good because some guys can play on the left and right. So I'd like to know the entire position group from the standpoint of left and right. Same thing with kind of guards, but also with how I kind of play it. Moving from, say, a guy like JJ Watt who typically plays in a 3-4. I'm not sure if there's like a scheme thing on the menu. I don't really see it. No. Sorry to yawn there. No, I don't really see one. So yeah, because typically it'd be like here. Maybe it's on a previous like player card, things like that. But with him, JJ Watt typically plays in a 3-4. So I guess it would be kind of hard if you're taking an end that plays in a 3-4 and he would play a defensive tackle in a 4-3, that it would be difficult to kind of show that. But I get why. I like the contracts though. your player motivations. It kind of gives you an idea. So historic championships. I don't think the Cardinals have only won maybe one championship. Maybe. Could be wrong with that. I probably am wrong with that. So that makes sense. So as you get lower, that's in there. Financials. Okay.
Friendly, and they each come with their own risk and reward. You can still customize your offers as well. And a top community request, new rollover cap, allows you to carry over unused cap space to the next year. We've taken the top request from player feedback.
That is big. So that was something that lacked in last year. Let me go back. The rollover. So I always thought that this was a thing, but I guess it wasn't. I don't know. I always had an idea that this was in there. Maybe it was the fact that it wasn't in the game and it was salary cap increases and I just didn't notice. Like maybe that was the fact, because the salary cap did increase about 10 to 15 million a year. So it wasn't random or anything like that, I don't think. I don't know how the game actually projected that. Now that we have salary cap increase a year and a rollover, this is going to be big. I love this. I don't think typically how it is let's see, 143. So typically how it is, the rookie reserve is reserved outside the salary cap. So that's not actually attached to the salary cap itself, like the spending. It's kind of like the reserve. So teams here would technically have like what? Like 237, 38 million in cap, because this isn't counted, but there might be some weird things in here that's kind of messed. So let's keep going.
We've taken the top request from player feedback to improve franchise scouting for Madden 23. First, we've added more scouts to the pool so you can get information on prospects.
This is big. The fact that they have multiple is great. And there's one, I stopped it here for one thing in particular. Sheila Thornton is offensive tackle and inside offensive line. Does this mean centers and guards? Like, this is a weird bit. But if this means like O-line, like offensive tackle and interior O-line, like this is good, because this is an evaluator of the entire O-line, which would be cool. Some of these don't make sense. Like Shelly Cannon being quarterback and middle linebacker. I mean, maybe they're trying to pair it in how it kind of is in certain ideas. And then this is the same thing. Interior O-line and defensive end. This is weird. Wouldn't this be defensive tackle and defensive end? There's just weird groupings in this. This one kind of makes sense with outside linebacker and safety. Corner and middle linebacker. I feel like looking at this, like here's one defensive end and defensive tackle. This one makes sense. I feel like they kind of put together a bunch of random positions instead of actually being a pairing. Now, it does make sense in the grand scheme of gameplay wise, but realism, it's kind of weird.
Faster and to optimize your chances in the draft.
Like there was one safety and tight end. That's weird.
No matter what your team needs are, you can now find and hire scouts that are experts at evaluating any position. You can also now scout multiple positions at each stage to unlock information on more prospects in less time. In Madden 22,
okay,
as you scouted a prospect at any given position, attributes and ratings were revealed randomly. For example, if you were scouting for a QB, a rating like break tackle might have been revealed early in the process, but that's not an important attribute for QB evaluation. In Madden 23, we've added weighted attribute reveals. Now, the ratings that matter most to the position you're scouting are revealed first. For example, throw power and throw accuracy will be revealed early for a QB.
So what I would love to see this is, instead of it, now this might be implied because I don't know, is one of two things: a number system of this, but a range. So like, say his deep accuracy is an A, so I have to inherently remember that an A is 90, let's say like a 95 to, or let's say like a 96 to a 94. I have to remember that. I think it'd be cooler to have a range. So like an implied range. So say his deep accuracy is actually a 91. So this would say A plus to a C plus at 35. And as it narrows down, it closes that gap to a 5 to 10 point spread. So I would like to see something like that. And if that has to be through a letter grade, like this would say A plus to D, and then like A to C plus, and then the next one, say once you hit like 75%, it's A to B plus. And so that kind of gives you an idea of a range. So there's still some randomness in there. Maybe that's implied. I don't know. Just not having a visual like an implication on that is a little weird. Plus, I heard rumors also. I don't remember which video, because I did watch a couple videos on Madden Deep Dives, that they wanted to do numbers instead of letters in a range, like I was saying. And then as you get a more scouted percentage, that range becomes more and more accurate. But maybe they haven't put it in. Maybe it's something later. Maybe it's in the next Madden. Who knows?
We've continued to listen to feedback from our community.
Maybe they're not doing it at all.
And improved other important areas of franchise, including draft classes, franchise hub, and overall immersion updates. We've added more than 30 new player generators to our draft classes and 2 existing ones. Now you can find unique.
This during a draft, I can't express how user-friendly that is to a player like me. I want to see a receiver, what his catching is. If this receiver has a C catching, I don't even care what he looks like. Don't care across the board. Like, this is great. Now, I know this is probably like his top 4 attributes, which is good also. It's probably not something you can kind of mess with. Say, I want to see receivers and I want to see their catching and their release as the top 2 things I care about. It's probably not how it's displayed here. It's probably the fact that this is top 4 ratings. However, you have some question marks as well. So I wonder if these question marks mean they're top. No, they can't be, because this power move is a D. So this is actually set by the position group. Block shedding. Let's see if there's another end. Here's 2. They are, doesn't say what kind of scheme or talent, but they all have the same thing. Okay. So that's how it's set. Each position has its top 5 or top 4. Okay. I do like that. I like that. That's nice. The only question is, this guy's 261, this guy's 266. I wonder if these are pass rushing linebackers. And since this is an actual pass rusher who's an end, if we're having some weird things where this end because he's in East Carolina couldn't play outside and vice versa because there's different things. I wonder how they kind of deal that that whole idea between a guy you're drafting who played in a 3-4 and you're playing a 4-3 or vice versa. I wonder how that kind of sets up. It would be cool if this was dependent on your scheme. So if I'm in a 3-4 and you see DeMarcus Abram and he isn't a guy that can play that middle position at an end, it would be cool to see if you could see that. But ultimately, at the end of the day, you could probably work yourself in and see each individual player, but also the fact that as you're scouting, you're going to have the things that are most important come up. And I wonder if the game is smart enough to notice that me looking at DeMarcus Abram in a 4-3, he's going to be a pass rusher. But in a 3-4, he's going to be an outside linebacker dropping into coverage some and pass rushing. So I wonder if when it reveals like the ratings, like the top position things I want to know about, this guy being a block shedder as an end on an outside linebacker scheme wise. And if I want him to be an outside linebacker, that block shedding I don't care about. Particularly like here, say his block shedding is this, but I want to use him as an inside linebacker or an off-ball linebacker who isn't going to be pass rushing. I wonder if it still makes block shedding one of the focus ones. Because it kind of doesn't make sense when you have this, but you don't have his block shedding. When the game specifies that certain things that you're scouting is weighted more important. And so I'm not sure why block shedding on an end isn't more important. I wonder if that has to do with something with the scheme or something like that.
You can fund players in every draft round. You'll also be able to see generational prospects in the draft.
No, I love
Finds
this.
are rare, but they come with a high overall rating and will be guaranteed X factors.
Okay.
This is super valuable as you develop your franchise for long-term success.
That is massive. When the AI comes in and gets some generational prospect, typically in Madden 22, if you saw a generational prospect, they were maybe only a superstar at best, and most of them were stars. Having someone come in and just be a generational star, I have questions about how often that will be, but a generational star coming in and being an automatic X factor, that's going to be insane. And I wonder if you could find those guys like Kittle, like the guy's a generational like a generational player at this point. And he was taken like the 5th round. I wonder if you can find generational prospects in the 5th round, or if there's only going to be players that are generational prospects that are up in the top of the draft, 1st round and 2nd round. So I wonder how that's going to kind of go. There's going to be some hidden gems in there that don't get picked until the later rounds.
With updated trade logic, CPU teams will place more players on the trade block and give you more offers via the new trade target tags.
Okay.
We've also added the ability to get immediate trade offers without having to
Ooh,
advance
that's
the week
big.
before you hear back from a team. Adjustments to team needs logic ensures that teams are valuing higher rated veteran players, and players with dev traits also have more value. This will impact how CPU teams draft and make trade offers.
Okay.
New CPU draft logic ensures teams are drafting the right players, and with new player tags, we've improved how each team approaches roster development. For example, the Jacksonville Jaguars, who drafted Trevor Lawrence in 2021 as their franchise quarterback, won't be looking to draft another quarterback, and instead will focus on
Okay. That's
now easier to unlock and
much
assign
better.
abilities. You can assign
Now, this thing is going to be big for a lot of players, a lot of leagues, things like that, to play like a multiplayer online league. For me, I just kind of let it out randomly happen. And in some cases, I kind of go with what their players are kind of known as. Obviously, Tariq Hill's more of a yards after catch guy, so giving him something that doesn't have to deal with that or giving them something that's silly, like being able to kind of moss cornerbacks is silly. So I kind of do it with that, with the realistic players, the players that are real life players. But I just kind of let like all the other players kind of do what they will. So I do like the fact that that's the case.
More abilities and create more variation for your players, and the most impactful abilities are now gated by higher overall ratings.
Okay, I like that.
Scouting UI improvements make it easier to assign scouts and create a cooler look at the mock drafts.
That was one of the things that was an issue. It was hard to see what you were scouting, where you were scouting, what you were scouting when it came to different places. I want more in-depth. And what I mean by in-depth, I would love to have like a NFL head coach approach to this. If you've never played that, since I'm talking about a game that was released in 2009, and I think 2011, was an NFL head coach. You had players that were sort of like this. So you had an idea with the draft, you had certain schools, and when you scouted mostly by school, if I remember right. So you'd have, say, 10 players from Ohio State. Okay, I want to go scout Ohio State. And you would go and you would get a completion percentage based on what your priority was, like position priority. So if I go to, say, Ohio State in this bit, and say there is a quarterback here, my priority is the receivers at Ohio State. I'm still going to be exposed to the quarterback Ohio State who's throwing to the receivers I care about at Ohio State. So with that one, it would be cool to have a weighted system. Say, this is 20. I go and I scout Ohio State. Sean Solomon, he is a 40% completion, but because I had a scout there, I get a secondary one on all the other players at Ohio State that were there, and say, instead of it being like a plus 20, I get a plus 10 in seeing what those other players are. I know it doesn't allow you to have mixed draft classes, and I think that's kind of the point Madden's going with, is you have people from like Appalachian State, things like that, which you'd have like one or two players there, and so you would never do it. So maybe the best way is to do it by like conference, maybe, or something like that. But I'd wish there was something more in depth where I can kind of concentrate multiple players by school rather than position. But maybe I'm approaching this the wrong way, because school might not be something that Madden takes into account. I always feel like it does. Like the players from bigger prestigious schools, kind of in my mind, maybe it's a realism bias in this and how it happens in real life. But to me, I just feel like a lot of the players that play at bigger schools tend to be better in Madden at their position from other players. So, for example, you have a guy from Florida State and Auburn. These guys are going to be obviously better than, say, a guy from a, like, what is it? Like was it FCC Atlantic or whatever? One of the smaller schools in a lower division, like Division 2 or Division 3. I've never really seen anyone be a lower division. Maybe I've missed that, but I feel like Madden kind of weights depending on the more prestigious school you're at, but I could be wrong.
In the franchise hub, we added team colors and logos to give your franchise's home base some life and personalization.
Okay.
We've also made the activity feed on the left easier to use, and we've decluttered some of the...
Yeah, it got pretty cluttered in last season.
We're excited about all the improvements coming to franchise in Madden 23. We can't wait for you to experience it yourself.
Okay, so that is the end of this one. So looks like July 22nd, it's gonna probably be open somewhere around there. So actually, I don't know. Maybe that's for Ultimate Team, which I don't mess around with. I don't know how to look at it. It's 22nd today, so we'll see. So, like, my final thoughts on this. This is a step in the right direction, at least from a menu standpoint. I mean, these are things that I wish Madden would have done before this. We're on sort of the right track. There's still a lot of work to do. I'm kind of a wait and see approach from this. Gameplay, I know there's a bit of gameplay changes, which I am very intrigued. Going back, not towards to like the quarterback cones. I never really used the quarterback cone. The whole idea, I don't know what Madden that was off the top of my head. That shows you I didn't really use it. I probably don't even remember it. But the like pinpoint passing, I'll see how that kind of works. I'm excited to see what is in this. I'm yet again disappointed that the PC version is not next gen, and so I'm gonna have to play it on PS5. A disappointment there. Madden, EA, get with the times. It's PC. Also, on the flip side, I think the reason they do that is because there is a modding community on PC, and I think EA does not particularly like Madden to be modded. So that might be the whole idea. I'm spitballing, throwing it out there. I don't know. At the end of the day, I wish next gen was on PC. It should be, but we'll kind of see how that goes going forward. That's kind of my thoughts on the trailer here and there. Not really going to cut anything from this or cut up anything. Just going to keep it raw and unedited for you guys. So have fun with that yawn. Hopefully you don't yawn with me at that point. It is earlier in the day and drinking coffee. So thanks for hanging out. These were my Madden thoughts, and I will see you guys in the next video. Later.